That's the 25th Amendment of the US Constitution. It's the bit that allows the removal of the president. It's a very complicated piece of legislation or constitutional law, but it basically says in certain elements of incapacity he can be removed. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, whilst not specifically referring to Donald Trump, says that the 25th Amendment needs to have more law.
A president's fitness for office must be determined by science and facts. This legislation applies to future presidents, but we are reminded of the necessity of action by the health of the current president. With this bill, the Congress honors our oath to support and defend the Constitution and protect the American people, and we uphold our responsibility to preserve our republic for generations to come.
With me is CNN senior commentator and the former governor of Ohio, John Kasich. Governor, thank you. Well, we now really are heading into deep waters, aren't we? When the 25th Amendment is, I mean, you know, it is one of those bits of trivial pursuit that comes up time and again. Do you think there are legitimate questions about the competency of the current president, bearing in mind his steroid treatment, his COVID and everything else?
No. I don't even want to get into this, Richard. Look, you know, we are where we are. We're, I don't know, a couple weeks, 3 weeks, month out from the election, and I see no reason there's kind of a discussion should be going on at this point in time, to be honest with you.
Right. Now let's talk about
how's
the
that
way
for an
then
answer? You never get, Richard, you never get a short answer out of a former politician. You just got one.
I know, I was so amazed. I had to think twice before what my next question was going to be. I didn't have time to frame it. John, look, then talk about what we have seen. This inability, and I'll guess there's blame on both sides, and everybody's politicking before the election, this inability to get a stimulus package to those who need it. Yeah. And I bet your answer's going to be longer on this one.
Yeah, you know, it's really, I never would have thought that we would be at this place. I would have thought that they would have done something a long time ago. But as this drags on, unfortunately, I think both sides are taking a look at, well, what's the political benefit, you know? And I think that's really unfortunate. Look, I just think this politics, the grab for power and everything is overwhelming the kind of need for public duty, service and all that. And I think it's just terrible because there are people who are really hurting out there and they ought to hammer out a deal and get this thing done like post haste.
Is that realistic? And you know, you're a politician yourself, and I applaud your values on this. But is it realistic when it's all to fight for and 27 odd days, 25 days to go?
You know, Richard, I think it's possible. I mean, I hate to give you a political answer. I don't know. I know that the president is pushing for it. I have heard that there are moderate Democrats that are pushing for it. They say that they have not totally walked away from the table. So is it possible that they can reach some agreement? Yeah, I think it's possible. But I can't predict. I mean, if I were there, I'd be pushing to get something done. And when I was there, we did get something done. So, you know, it's a very bizarre time. But what's in the middle of all this, Richard, is what's in the middle of politics, unfortunately, when it becomes more sordid. And that's the fact that it is a pursuit of power by all parties. I want to be in charge. I want the power. And it never really used to be that way. You know, it shouldn't be a zero-sum game. You know, you win this election, we win the next one. But in the middle, in the meantime, we figure out a way to get along. That was my experience for the 18 years that I was in office. And, you know, pretty much the way that we were able to negotiate things for the 8 years in which I was governor. But I must remind you, Richard, I'm not a politician now. I'm not, but I don't know what I am. I'm in between, or maybe out to, who knows? We'll see.
Ah, well, yes, you decided to.
I'm an observer.
Turn your support behind. No. Let's not overstate this, Governor. You're still in. You may not be a participant, but you're well and truly in the fora. Look, if there was a Biden administration, and you are supporting him, would you serve in a Biden administration?
No. No, I'm not interested in returning to Washington. Richard, you know, when you were a governor, there's there's nowhere to go from there. Being in a cabinet or something like that, that just doesn't have any interest for me. You know, if any of the presidents had come and said, look, we need an envoy, you know, there's a crisis somewhere, and, you know, could you step in and help us here for a couple months? That's a different issue. But in terms of moving to Washington and trying to have a cabinet position, I'm not interested. You know, I have other things that I'm doing now that are fascinating and meaningful to me.
And finally, how difficult was it to make the decision to support the other party, bearing in mind you had been a star within your, and you are a star, well, I'd been within your own party. What's that moment like when you have to say it's principle before party?
It's always been that way from the day I first got into politics. Nobody says that I'm in a different swim lane. I've been able to work with Democrats my entire career, and I've always put the country before I've put my political party. The party is, by the way, my vehicle and never my master. But let me make one other thing clear to you, Richard. If Joe Biden wins this election, and if they start doing things that I think are not in the best interests of our country, you're going to hear me criticize that. I'm not all in with anybody. I mean, it's my job to take a look at the best I can with, you know, people that I can talk to figure out what I think the best things are for our country. Right. I supported Joe Biden because I think he can return civility, and I think he can get people around the table and solve problems. If they decide they want to do it unilaterally, then, you know, they're going to have me as a critic. So we'll see where this all goes, and you and I should have a lot more fun talking about all this after this election is over.
Oh, you have an invitation. It's in the mail. Okay. Well, email anyway, yes. We will frequently. Governor, it is good to talk to you. The non-politician's politician.
Thanks, Richard.
Who's not a politician. Good to see you, sir. I appreciate it, as always. Thank you,
See you again, Richard. Always a pleasure.